that I want to look at just because there's something in there that I think would confuse people that we get overwhelmed with because we don't like variables. But tangent in general, just because SOHCAHTOA, we'll review that. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. We know all that. The first exercise is just taking the right triangles and finding the value of sine, cosine, and tangent. So you would just Pythagorean theorem to finish. I'm not going to do any of this. You would Pythagorean theorem, and then you would do sine opposite over hypotenuse, cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent opposite over adjacent. Yes? Easy peasy. We've been doing that all along. At which of the following angles is tangent undefined? If you think about my tangent graph going from 0 and increasing to undefined, we know it's undefined anytime the reference angle is 90, right? So that would be at a 90 or a 270 or a negative 90 or a negative 270. So that's option 2. Exercise 6. We're told where the terminal ray ends in the second quadrant. We're given the sine value, which will allow us to label our right triangle opposite 5, hypotenuse 13, Pythagorean theorem, find the other values. All review. 7 I want to go over. The concept is a review, but even just looking at those answers with those A's involved, I know that's going to throw people off. So we'll do this one out. If cosine is A, where A is greater than 0 and the terminal ray lies in the fourth quadrant, stop and draw. Terminal ray, fourth quadrant. Drop your right triangle. Label your theta. And the cosine is A. Cosine is what over what? Okay, and if something is not a fraction, what do we put it over? 1. So the adjacent side should be labeled A. Here. And the hypotenuse should be labeled 1. And what we're doing is no different. We're going to do the Pythagorean theorem, and we're going to figure out this missing side length. I just know you're not going to love doing the Pythagorean theorem with letters. But it's the same thing. So a squared plus, we'll call it x squared, equals 1 squared. So I'm solving for this leg x. So I'm going to subtract my a squared over. So x squared equals 1 minus a squared. Can we all agree I don't need a squared on the 1? And then to solve for x, I have to take the square root of both sides. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus a squared. We just talked about this a few minutes ago. I'm taking the square root of a binomial. That does not allow me to take the square root of 1 separately than the square root of a squared. It has to be left this way. Okay? Now, based on this leg, is it plus or minus? Minus, because we're going down. So this is the negative square root of 1 minus a squared. Not a single new concept here at all. Just, I know we don't like it because of the variable. So now the question is, what's the value of tangent? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So what's your option? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Opposite over adjacent. 4. Good? Number 8, they give you a point. We're going to plot the point, draw a terminal ray to it, drop a triangle, label the third side. Easy. We're not going to love decimals when we do the Pythagorean theorem, but at least they're numbers. Oh, we don't even need to do the Pythagorean theorem because they tell us we're on the unit circle. So what's the hypotenuse? 1. If you did do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if you took it would give you 1 anyway. But why do it if you can save yourself the time? Which one is tangent undefined again? Negative 90, right? Any vertical axis. 10 is just a display of what each thing is positive or negative in which quadrant. I don't like that table presentation of it, so this is going to tap into all students take calculus. So in quadrant 1, they're all positive. In quadrant 2, what's positive? Sine, and the other ones are negative, and so on and so forth. So that's just that, nothing new. 11 is kind of like your quiz question. If tan is positive and sine is negative, which quadrant are we in? So that's all students take calculus stuff. This whole section is draw the terminal ray, label the sides of your triangle, do SOHCAHTOA, answer the question. 13. Again, nothing new, but you're not going to love it because of the radicals. So I want to do this one out and then I'll be done. The terminal ray of an angle B contains the point 1/2 negative root 3 over 2. So 1/2 is my x coordinate, puts me out that way. Negative root 3 over 2 is my y coordinate. And then there's my hypotenuse. I could A, if I had no other option, Pythagorean theorem. Okay? And you don't need to do the Pythagorean theorem because it says unit circle, so we already know it's 1. But there will be times you have to do the Pythagorean theorem with fractions, and I want to make sure we're good with that. So 1/2 squared plus negative root 3 over 2 squared equals 1. What is 1/2 when you square it? 1/4 plus, what is negative root 3 over 2 when you square it? 3/4, right? Oops, I'm pretending like I don't know this. Hypotenuse squared. The negative squared makes it a positive. Root 3 squared is a 3. 2 squared is a 4. So you're going to get 1 equals h squared, and so h is 1, which, like I said, says unit circle, so we didn't have to do that, but just so we make sure we can square a fraction fine. And then the tangent, be careful here, because tangent is opposite negative root 3 over 2 over adjacent 1/2. A fraction divided by fraction, what do you think? How do you handle that? A fraction divided by a fraction. Keep, change division multiplication, flip 1/2 to 2 over 1. And the 2's cancel. And it's just negative root 3 over 1. So the answer, negative root 3. So just out of curiosity, what is my angle reference then? If the tangent is root 3, what is the angle reference? 60. And it's in the fourth quadrant, so it's actually a negative 60-degree angle or a 300-degree angle. Follow? Just another thought. Here comes your homework. Darn it, I really want to go over your quiz. Oh well. George, do you know your midterm correction tomorrow? Oh, and if you get an extra one, we just set it